The vote at the UN General Assembly is historically significant because this is the first time in 25 years that the U.S. has abstained from voting in what has become an annual tradition at the General Assembly. For more than 2 decades, the UN has overwhelmingly voted on resolutions condemning the U.S. embargo on Cuba, and the U.S. has consistently objected to these resolutions, but not this time.
Today, the United States will abstain. After 50-plus years of pursuing the path of isolation, we have chosen to take the path of engagement.
Under the Barack Obama administration, the U.S. has begun to normalize relations with Cuba and re-establish diplomatic ties. And this U.S. abstention at the UN underscores that shift in U.S. policy towards Cuba. However, the U.S. maintains that this doesn't mean it agrees with all of the policies and practices of the Cuban government, especially where it comes to human rights. Cuba welcomed the abstention but said that many of the crippling sanctions are still in place.
The majority of the executive regulations and the laws that establish the blockade are nevertheless still in place and are applied rigorously up until this minute by the U.S. government agencies.
Now, in the short term, it's unlikely that this vote will change anything. The vote is not legally binding in the sense that it cannot force the U.S. to lift its embargo on Cuba, but it does exert enormous pressure on the U.S. to do so. Even then, in the short term, it's unlikely to happen because the decision lies in the hands of the U.S. Congress, which has said that it wants to keep the blockade in place. And Cuba's fate also depends on who becomes the next U.S. president and which party wins the Senate. Donald Trump has said that if he wins the presidency, he will tighten the embargo on Cuba, while Hillary Clinton is likely to push for more engagement with the long game of ending the embargo eventually. Li Ling Tan, CCTV, New York.